Good afternoon, everyone. This is Laurentine Djatsa from Ghana. I live in Ghana, but I come from Cameroon. I would like to say a happy Women's Day to all of you here, and thank you to Fatun for inviting me. I have a presentation. I think it is ready to be displayed. Happy Women's Day to you all. My name is Laurentine Djatsa. I'm a Cameroonian and I'm based in Ghana. I am the director of International Language Consult, a company located in Burkina Faso in West Africa. It's a privilege for me to speak to you today on the occasion of the International Women's Day. I would like to thank Miss Fatun for the invitation and all of you for watching me now. I will be speaking on the theme The Woman of Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. My focus will be on the African context. I'll be talking about 3 different areas of the women's existence and the changes that have taken place so far and what, in my opinion, is still missing. The first era is what I would call the era of total submission. The second one is emancipation, and the third one, which we are yet to enter into, is what I will call the era of total freedom. And 3 factors contributed to making women who they were yesterday. Number 1, lack of education. Women did not have access or had very limited access to formal education. Number 2, we had the cultural factor that systematically relegated women to the level of servants of men. Women were not involved in any decision making. Their role was merely limited to taking care of their husbands and the rest of the family, and in most cases the woman was the main breadwinner of the family. And number 3, all this led to low self-esteem. Low self-esteem was built by default in the African women of yesterday. They lived in fear disguised as submission. They were sometimes violated by their husbands and could not say anything because society had made things the way they were. And female entrepreneurs and leaders did not exist, and even those who tried could not fully release their potentials. But with the emancipation, women started to gain more access to formal education. That became a sort of eye-opener for them and produced what I call the women of today. Women began to revolt, and many paid high prices to obtain a sort of freedom. An example is Mrs. B, a woman called Mrs. B, who married Mr. P, and she married him as a woman of yesterday. Very submissive. She could not make any decision, even on matters that concern her personally. When she was still a young woman, her father got involved in an accident and was dying at the hospital. He wanted her to come around, probably because he wanted to say goodbye or to see her for the last time. But that wasn't possible because Mr. P decided that he would go see his dying father-in-law on behalf of his daughter, so she could not travel to see her father before he died. Years later, Mr. P lost all his investments and became so broke that he could not take care of the family anymore. So Mrs. B started a business even against her husband's consent, and that business eventually became the family only stream of income. But even as the main breadwinner of the family, Mrs. B did not really have peace at home because her husband always exerted power over her as a typical African man of that time. She decided to go through all sorts of frustration in order to prepare a good future for her children. She did her best, but I believe Mrs. B could have done better if she had gone far with her education as a young person, and if her husband had given her the needful support. So we see clearly that Mrs. B transited from a very submissive woman of yesterday to becoming a more determined and courageous woman, because the life and future of her children were at stake. The women of today have more decision-making power, and there has been an outstanding rise of female entrepreneurs and leaders lately. But something is still missing, in my opinion. Women's emancipation seems not to be very effectual in Africa for many reasons. We still see the patterns of yesterday women in today's women. Meanwhile, looking at the role women played due to the requirements of the African culture, it seems that they were unconsciously being prepared to become great leaders. They literally ran the household, and many still do today. But the truth is that even though women occupy leadership positions in society today, only a few of them are able to excel, because in the African mentality, women are still not supposed to be at the front line. I recently hosted a catalyst workshop in a West African country, and only a few women were in attendance. And when I asked why, I was told that some women don't see the necessity to pay attention to anything that involves forward thinking and that involves taking initiatives, because they believe they will not be up to the task anyway due to their responsibilities at home. Today, women also face the situation of having to choose between their marriages and their jobs or businesses. A certain woman successfully went through a series of interviews for a top position in one of the biggest banks in Africa. But just before she could receive her appointment later, she was advised to reject the offer if she really wanted to keep her marriage going, because the position involved a lot of hard work. This kind of situation can only keep women from dreaming big. Also, many men in Africa still don't participate in house chores because it is believed to be a woman thing. Meanwhile, in a home where the man and the woman both work, the woman also contributes to the household expenses most of the time. But when they both return from work, in spite of the hectic day they both had at their respective workplaces, the woman will be the one to make dinner for the family, whilst the man relaxes in front of the television waiting for dinner to be served. This shows clearly that women are still somehow relegated to second class. Another problem is that women are sexually manipulated for job offers and promotions at workplaces. In some parts of Africa, when a woman becomes very rich, her wealth is often questioned by the society, because people don't really believe in women's potential and still think sincerely that it takes a man somewhere to make a woman rise in exchange for sex. This unfortunately seems to be true sometimes with a phenomenon called sugar daddy, whereby younger women, instead of joining the movement, willfully submit themselves to old rich men as sexual instruments for favors. Women sometimes are the cause of their own problem, because they use their power to compete with their fellow women and their husbands, thus missing the whole purpose of the women's emancipation. Another issue that impedes the total emancipation of women is the phenomenon of house girls. Female children as young as 7 years in some countries are given away to work in homes as maids. Those girls never have the chance to go to school. What then should be done? In my opinion, first of all, women and girls should be continually encouraged to get involved in women's movements to help them understand their place in society. There's this African country where the International Women's Day has become a huge annual festival, but the issue is that the majority of the women who participate in the celebration don't even understand what is going on. They don't know why they are celebrating. They see the occasion as an opportunity to fool around, behaving in a silly way, and engaging in sexual activities with different men. They do things that have nothing to do with the women's rights. Obviously, because maybe the message has not been conveyed properly somewhere. They see the International Women's Day as the day of freedom of the year. And when the party is over, they return to business as usual. Nothing changes. Secondly, men should also be included in the celebration of the Women's Day. Most men in Africa are not well informed of the changes in women's societal position. And thirdly, as I mentioned earlier, women of the African descent should exploit their inbuilt leadership skills to rise in society. If women are able to run their households successfully, then they can excel in any other leadership position if given the right training or guidance. Number 4, today for financial reasons, we still have uneducated or undereducated women and girls with great potentials that they can't even fully release. If chance is given to those women and girls to further their education, they will excel. One important thing that contributes to women's slow rise is the fact that most women can't control their emotions. Women should learn to place their emotions under control in order to release their potential fearlessly. They have a great sense of focus and the ability to be multitasked. But when a woman's emotions are not under control, she cannot achieve much. Younger women should be trained to know their worth as human beings. This will stop them from thinking that they can only count on men to succeed in life. And most importantly, I think women should take advantage of new technologies to make their voices heard and expand their businesses for those who are in business. Now, let's talk about tomorrow's women and how to prepare them. I believe that if the right formula is used today, tomorrow we will have a breed of women who are strong, courageous, and determined. The women of tomorrow will be the result of today's efforts. Those efforts should be made at different levels, at home by parents, in schools, and in many other institutions. The girls of today being the future of tomorrow's women, they should be introduced to entrepreneurship, leadership, and other capacity building activities or trainings as early as possible. Such trainings will instill in them courage, strength, and determination and prepare them to become the women we want to see tomorrow. Women should also capitalize on the digital revolution. The digital world gives equal opportunity to both men and women today, and self-education in digital skills should be promoted among women and girls. This brings us to the end of our presentation. Happy Women's Day.
My goodness, Lorraine, I'm so glad you said yes. I am just blown away what you're talking about, and it's so true. It is so true. It's happening everywhere. Um, I was hearing, like, I was told stories about Somalia and how now hotels are becoming a hot places for young girls who are from poor families are going to the hotels and they just selling their bodies for a couple of dollars to get their, their creams or even feed their families. So we, African men or, our black men are not our enemy. We don't want to alienate them, but they need to wake up. They need to wake up, and I am so grateful for you to talk about the woman of tomorrow, because it's happening. The road looks like it's low, but the pain right now that you are seeing and we're seeing and you're talking about so eloquently, it's so true. So I can tell you, you got a sister and a partner forever. Isuroon and I, you and me and Halima, we will be partnering to learn from you guys, to what we need to do for here and what we need to do for back home. So I'm grateful for you and Halima and all of the speakers, especially you two ladies. You're amazing. And I know there's so much assets that we still need to hear. So I'll be coming over where you are soon, inshallah.